What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews, where I'm your host, John Delray. Today, we are going through the biggest storylines, the biggest headlines of the Packers' organized team activities week one. Now, to this point, the Packers have only had one practice that's actually been open to the credentialed beat reporters. And so I'm going to summarize a lot of their findings, what guys have said at the locker room, and really just go through all of the answers for the biggest headlines, including Matt LaFleur's press conference that also happened on Tuesday. Now, there are going to be parts of this, especially if you checked out the live on Wednesday that we did. You've heard some of this before, but this is going to be a little bit more detailed, a little bit more of a dive in for everybody to what seems to be the 8 biggest question that Packers fans have about the team. One quick programming note, keep in mind, no new episode Monday as I'm taking a long weekend with the family this weekend, and I'll be back next Wednesday for Lombardi Time Brews Live. Please just join us there. So, without anything else, let's dive right in. What is question number 1? Who's there? What's going on at OTAs? And actually, for the Packers, it's been a resounding, full attendance to this point. They have 90 people on their roster at this point. They have one open roster spot. They can go to 91 if they need to or want to, but they're currently sitting at 90, and 89 of the 90 are there, which is incredible attendance for voluntary workouts. Keep in mind, OTAs don't get mandatory until June 11th to June 13th for a 3-day minicamp. As for the one guy who's not there, well, that would be Robert Rochelle, the depth cornerback. Matt LaFleur cited a personal reason for him missing the first OTAs. Maybe he'll be there later. LaFleur didn't say as much, but he is out right now. This is a guy who just re-signed with the Packers this offseason. You got to believe that it would be beneficial for him to be there. It's not great for him to be the headline of the only dude who's not there. Maybe he shows up, and maybe it was something, very, very important that he had to attend to. Now, the other thing that I'll say about OTA's attendance is they were at 89 of 90 on the one, let's say, public day where reporters were at least let in. But keep in mind that throughout the voluntary workout course of time, this could fluctuate a little bit. Matt LaFleur talked about the importance of Jordan Love being there and how it really kind of brings everyone around. Jordan Love spoke about how important it is that he's there to get in sync with his receivers and everybody else. But as a perfect example of sometimes the fluidity of OTAs, Jordan Love also mentioned earlier this offseason that he would be getting out of OTAs for a day or two to go watch his fiance play volleyball. So there is some level of fluidity here, but still, even being in the 80s at all out of 90 possible guys for voluntary workouts is quite commendable and indicative of the culture that's building or has been built in Green Bay. As I've said before, there were years where we would have dreamed of having this many guys there. Maybe one of the perks of a younger team. So now the next question, besides just who's there, who's hurt? And unfortunately, this list has some names. The big headlines, though, Zach Tom and Tucker Kraft. Both of them have torn pec injuries. Now, for Zach Tom, Matt LaFleur made it sound as though it happened quite a while ago. So he should be ready for the start of training camp, but he's going to be out at least until then. And he was a part of the rehab group that reporters saw on Tuesday. As for Tucker Kraft, now, there was at first some speculation about the guy got married this last weekend and then showed up in a sling. What the freak happened at that wedding? Did he get down and boogie? Maybe too much. Well, it's been revealed that this was indeed a workout injury for Tucker Kraft, but still, even as I'm recording this on Thursday, it happened about 12 days ago. So still a new injury. He's not going to be doing much. LaFleur was hopeful that he'd be ready for the start of camp, but Kraft may need a little bit more time getting into camp before he can really go. So 2 big pec injuries there, in addition to Matt LaFleur's pec injury. As for other guys who were a part of the rehab group, that would be Keaton Oladapo, their rookie safety. He was dealing with a toe injury. Even at the draft, you may recall videos where he had wrappings on his foot, still dealing with that toe injury. Tyler Davis continuing to work his way back from his torn ACL. And then Keyshawn Banks, the last year practice squad, he did get called up, the edge rusher. He's dealing with some kind of undisclosed injury. As well as Josh Jacobs, their new running back. He has a hamstring injury. Now, LaFleur did not sound long-term concerned about any of these injuries at all, including Kraft and Tom, and certainly Jacobs. He was a little, I don't want to say dismissive about Jacobs having a hamstring injury, but like, you know, maybe we're all just a little shell-shocked from hamstring injuries, and maybe that's understandable. As for one guy who is actually healthy very unexpectedly, that would be Kingsley Enagbare, their depth defensive end, edge rusher, realistically probably like number 4 on the depth chart. He's good to go. And the full mystery has not been revealed from anywhere yet about what's going on with Kingsley Enagbare. How we all thought that he had a torn ACL. He said he had a torn ACL, then he doesn't have a torn ACL, and there he is. He's not even wearing a sleeve or a brace or anything. Dude is just full go, which from a personal standpoint, fantastic. You're healthier. That's good. From a football standpoint, that's a major boost for the Packers' defensive depth. Enagbare is a willing contributor who does have some pass rush chops. It's been kind of inconsistent, but throughout a game by game basis, he's had some games where he's been one of their best run defending edge rushers too. So his presence is a very, very welcome one on the defense. I've got to believe that they are thrilled that he is doing as well as he is right now. And again, practicing at this point, full go, no restrictions, nothing. And without a brace, without a sleeve, dude's just out there playing football. As for another guy who's just out there playing football, what about Christian Watson? What about those hamstrings? Did going to Madison do anything for him at all? Well, yes and no. Matt LaFleur admitted in his press conference that they're not really doing anything differently for Christian Watson. He's not working out differently. They're not having him really do different exercises. But what was found, and Christian spoke on this a little bit himself, as well as Ryan Wood, the reporter, he put out an article for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Basically, when Watson went to Madison and underwent all of this testing, they found that his left leg, keep in mind, all of his hamstring injuries last year occurred on the right leg. His left leg was about 20% stronger than that of his right leg. And the reason for that is because he runs unsymmetrically, asymmetrically. He runs wrong. Basically, one of the fastest humans on earth happens to run in an unbalanced manner. And so now what they're really working on is not necessarily completely changing his training regimen, but instead kind of reteaching his body to still have the same level of explosion, still have the same level of speed, but to do so in a more balanced manner. And so Christian himself talked about wanting to reduce. It's already down to, he's about 12% unbalanced now. The goal really is to get him to about 6% unbalanced. And then they're hoping that that will resolve the injury hamstring dilemma and why it keeps on happening in that right leg. Overall, my take on this, I'm a little nervous about that, right? Because it does kind of feel like, something's got to be different from the training regimen, right? But I guess if he's running unbalanced, then I suppose not. The whole thing just feels like, well, we think we have a really good idea, and so we're going to do this. But it's not a guarantee that the hamstring woes are going to go away. We just think that we know why they're occurring now. And as a fan, and I'm sure for Christian and for the team, it's a little like, okay, the why is good. Is this the best possible solution? Is this the solution that's going to guarantee the highest chances that he actually stays on the field? That we will find out. The one other thing that I have as a thought about this, though, is if this kind of thing is available, that a player can go test for several hours at some sports athletic institute and do these tests and find out the real nitty gritty about running weird, why doesn't everyone just automatically do that? Right? And I'm not saying us people, no, I'm saying the Packers, especially if it's just in Madison, top skipping and jumping away, or, they're continuing to test Christian in Green Bay. Why is it just not a facet of training camp that everyone's got to go through this testing? It just feels like it could solve some things. And maybe Aaron Hill will implement this kind of thing in the future. But ultimately, for right now, it doesn't sound like it is. They're just having the guys who are chronically injured do it when it kind of feels like that's worthwhile information for everybody to have. In terms of one thing that Aaron Hill is doing, it from the sounds of it, the elongated stretch periods, the different size dudes doing different stretches, both have continued throughout OTAs. One of the things that we talked about in the earlier phases of the offseason was Chris Gizzy did not ever really employ a very long stretching period, and the entire team, whether you're a big offensive lineman or a tiny corner, all did the exact same exercises. Under Aaron Hill, under his tutelage, that's all changing. More stretching, diversification of exercises for different body types. Hopefully that pans out as well. So let's move on to the youngins. Where are the rookies? Well, I can tell you a few things here. One, for portions of OTAs, it's been reported that still, like the more like rookie workouts, stuff like that, for a portion of OTAs, the rookies still go off and do their own thing and kind of then come to the rest of the group as maybe they pass a test, and no one's really sure the exact details here, but rookies go off and do their own thing. Then they eventually join in with what the rest of the team is doing, whether it be position drills or some kind of facing off in some very, very light scrimmage form. So I'll give you the entire starting lineup here as was presented, the first men up in OTAs for all of the defense and then the offensive line, since that's what's really pertinent here for the offense. And then I'll explain where the rookies, or at least the top rookies, have kind of folded into at this juncture, of course, subject to change as they learn the professional game. But for the defense, the first men out were Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, and Rashawn Gary on the defensive line. Linebackers, Isaiah McDuffie, Quay Walker. Corners, Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander, Keyshawn Nixon. And then safeties, Xavier McKinney and Anthony Johnson Jr., last year's 7th round pick, working his way into the temporary starting lineup. Now, as for the top rookie defenders, where did they wind up? Well, Adrian Cooper and Tyron Hopper, they rotated in with the twos at the linebacker spots, the twos, and then Bullard and Williams both rotated in with the twos at safety. So there you go, the top four. They at least are all playing with the twos as of now, but that is going to change, I would think. As for the offensive line, we can talk about the big one right there, Jordan Morgan, the first men up offensive line. And I will say this, both defensive and offensively, Packers were obviously giving some priority to the vets ahead of the rookies. Well, for the vets, Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, and Andre Dillard. As for the swaps, or some of this got a little murky. It sounded like sometimes they switched in with the ones, sometimes with the twos, like just this was the kind of depth chart they were operating from. So line one was Walker, Jenkins, Myers, Ryan, Dillard. Then swapping in was Jordan Morgan, getting snaps at both left tackle and right tackle, with his natural position being left tackle, with the Packers saying that they're going to give him first chance at tackle. With him only playing left tackle in college, it's not surprising at all that Morgan is learning the tackle position first. That's left and right tackle. Then Elton Jenkins, here's something a little notable, not a rookie, but still very notable. He was getting snaps at center. Do I think Elton Jenkins is going to wind up starting at center? No, I think that's still Josh Myers' job. Whether you like that or don't like it, I do think it is his for the last year of his contract. But maybe Elton Jenkins is going to be center 2 on the depth chart. Maybe it was just because Zach Tom isn't practicing because of his pec injury. Don't know, but we can report that Elton Jenkins was getting some snaps at center. And then rotating in right behind Sean Ryan at right guard, not rookie Jacob Monk, not Donovan Jennings. Nay. Newman. Royce Newman was indeed getting some snaps for Sean Ryan at right guard. From the sounds of it, it sounded like even some of those snaps were coming with when the first team unit was on the field. Gutter. So now, what about contract status for the rookies? Have they signed? Where are they at in that process? Well, we can say that Adrian Cooper, he has now signed his contract. That was effective on Thursday, happened just earlier, actually. That leaves the Packers with only 2 unsigned rookies, and that would be first-round pick Jordan Morgan and second-round pick Javon Bullard. It is not nearly to the thing. Remember years ago when picks would hold out and like this whole thing? It's not like that anymore. at all. There is zero concern that all of these guys will get contracts. They're practicing without contracts, etc. They just need to hammer out some details, different incentives, different, bonuses here or there. Deferred money is sometimes a part of rookie contracts, that kind of thing. So Morgan and Bullard are the only two remaining unsigned draft picks. Moving on, what about the guy? What about the guy? Jordan Love. What's his contract status? Well, nothing. Matt Schneiderman went on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week and basically said, hey, look, it's going to get done. Like Schneiderman, his opinion is that he would be shocked if Jordan Love sees a preseason game without having a new contract. That is to say, not that they won't play him, it's to say that the contract will be done before the preseason. But he also doesn't feel as though anything is incredibly imminent between Jordan Love's representation and the front office. Jordan Love really does seem comfortable waiting for the rest of the QB market to shake itself out. Maybe see some other record-shattering extensions so Love can pull up his own market. And Brian Gutekunst is just kind of sitting there going, okay, that's fine. We know you're ours. And so we'll get to it. Now, the two sides have talked. We know that. We know that this is going to be a very, very large contract. Maybe there's some ranges, some rough parameters, pure speculation on my part, but maybe like we know something's been exchanged between the two parties. I will say too, Jordan Love's agent, David Muguleta, is one of the best in the business at repping his players and getting them top dollar. So I don't think this is going to be a cheap contract. I think this is going to come real, real close. Burrow is the top earner on a yearly average basis in the NFL right now at $55 million. Love, I don't know if he's going to eclipse that and set the new record, but he's going to be close. I think it's going to wind up being in the low 50s. We're going to see at least half of it guaranteed. That's my gut is telling. If it comes in under that from the Packers side of things, oh, fantastic. Because then they've got more money to operate over the future years. But I think that's what's going to happen. And I don't think that's Jordan Love being selfish. I think it's just Jordan Love getting his. So good for him. Now, next question. Oh, and I should address too, Jordan Love was asked about this personally, like at his locker. And what did he say? He said, yeah, I'm not really going to worry about the contract stuff. Like, we're not really going to talk about that. I'm here. I'm not going to not be here. We're doing OTAs. I'm focusing on getting locked in, focusing on having a great year, not being complacent. He didn't seem to really be too worried about it. So neither should we. Now, what did the players say? Because I just mentioned Jordan Love at his locker, what he was talking about. What about some other dudes? What did they have to say? Well, Keyshawn Nixon put out this quote, which I revealed at the live on Wednesday, but I love it, so I'm going to say it again. Keyshawn Nixon said, we let a team off the hook last year in the playoffs, and we know that. Everybody on this team is here for a mission, and we're ready to win a Super Bowl. We're all here locked in, and it shows. We ain't nothing to play with. Love it. And apparently, as Packers.com noted, as other reporters noted, hunger, lack of, or not wanting to be complacent, that's a better way to say that, drive, all were very, very evident from a number of the returning Packers. And that quote kind of encapsulates it in a big way. When asked for Jordan Love, what he had to say, Jordan Love said that they are working towards not being complacent because of their success last year. He also said that the offense is in a completely different position than it was last year. Truly a night and day difference. He used that exact wording twice in his little snippet where he talked about how last year everything was so brand new. It's his first year as a starter, a lot of rookies, et cetera, and they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know where they were supposed to go. This year, what a welcome change for him, that everyone knows exactly where they're supposed to run a route. Everyone knows exactly where they're supposed to wind up on the field. He said from a chemistry standpoint, they are miles ahead where they were last year. And that, I got to tell you, pretty darn exciting. As for two other notable quotes, let's talk A.J. Dillon. He did acknowledge at his locker that he did get a couple other offers, but it made a lot of sense to return to Green Bay. He didn't want to uproot his family. He said that even after he's done playing, if he's got to go play for other teams, it doesn't matter. Green Bay will always be his home. And the truth of it is, look, for a lot of players, if the money is negligible, if they're in a good situation, like Dillon, even though he's not going to get the most playing time in the world probably this year, but hey, Green Bay likes him. He likes Green Bay. His family's there. He says it's his home. He's got a key to the freaking county just up north in Door County. So it makes a lot of sense. So he's back. As for one other notable, we can talk about last year's draft pick, Kobe Wooden. Now, Wooden last year was a little bit of a tweener. He did play on the defensive line last year, but he was about 278 pounds throughout the course of the season last year. He said at the draft party for the Packers that he was going to be bulking up. He was going to be adding some weight so that he could do what the defensive line asked him to do. Matt LaFleur acknowledged in his press conference that Kobe Wooden was one of the more changed players on the roster. I was making it sound like they're in freaking puberty, but he's saying that Kobe Wooden has undergone more changes. And yeah, dude bulked up from 278 to now 290 to really be a true defensive tackle on this defensive line. A little bit more bulk to go get him, if you will. And I should note too here that Wooden said that the way that he did this bulk up, this 12 pounds, it wasn't just eating cheese curds. No, what the man did was a lot of strength training and yoga, and then mixing in some conditioning, hopefully enough. But strength training, yoga, added 12 pounds the good way. So Kobe Wooden undergoing a change. And then he did also acknowledge at his locker, he talked quite a bit about how the defensive line is already being asked to do different things. This is going to be a massive change because we've talked before about how it used to be that the defensive line would have to read, make decisions, kind of wait for gaps, etc., allow players behind them to come crashing down. Not anymore. Not according to Rebrovich, not according to Hafley, and now not according to Kobe Wooden himself. The D-line is being told, go get him. And then the last thing, are there going to be joint practices this year? Because, hey, this is always a fan favorite for those who get to come view training camp to see other teams. A lot of players really love it too. You can stop smacking each other in training camp and you can smack somebody else, especially when you get to like week 3 of camp and everybody's kind of sick. Everybody spending so much time together. So are there going to be joint practices this year? And the answer unequivocally is yes. Matt LaFleur did reveal that there are going to be 2 sessions of joint practices this year, one before the Denver game. So those are going to take place in Denver, but they're also going to do joint practices against the Baltimore Ravens for the final preseason game. Those are, of course, going to take place in Green Bay at Ray Nitschke Field. I think, look, from a schedule standpoint, I love Baltimore being the final game on the preseason schedule. Why? Because weeks 1 and 2 of the season are against highly mobile quarterbacks in the forms of Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson, because Richardson's actually healthy now. So they've got 2 mobile quarterbacks to start the year. So why not give you the ultimate test in mobile quarterbacks for your final preseason game? And I know you might be thinking, well, like, Jamar Jackson's not going to play in the final preseason game. No, but I bet you he's going to take part in these joint practices. And that still gives Hafley and company something to work towards. Even if it's a little bit of getting after a mobile quarterback, it can't hurt for what they've got lined up week 1 and week 2. So there you have it. Thank you for joining me. That is getting you all caught up on all the big headlines around OTAs. We'll check in again next week, see what's going on. Join me next time. Next time you see me, Wednesday for LTB Live, next Wednesday at 4 o'clock Lambeau time, and then putting out another episode on Friday. Please, everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I do hope this weekend, especially Memorial Day, is everything that you need it to be. Thanks so much for joining me here at Lombardi Time Brews. And as always, go Pack Go.